from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Wednesday night. I'm happy I know the day. We're live, we're national. It's 7 minutes past the hour, and I want to give you the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Man, a bunch of things coming out today. You remember when the George Floyd incident happened? And because I do. And I remember all sorts of people were saying, well, he's no saint. And the media was trying to make him out to be a saint. And I understand the desire for one to do that. I really do. Right? Because right away you're like, here's the media making this guy to be out to be some martyr. And for all we know, he's got a legacy of crime behind him. But the reality, at least for me, was in that moment that George Floyd was, meeting his maker and whatnot. The only thing that Derek Chauvin, the cop, knew and he knew was what was going on in that moment. He responded to a call for a counterfeit, $20 bill that was passed off. He didn't know about George Floyd holding a woman at gunpoint, a pregnant woman at gunpoint, or any of the other things that he'd done throughout his criminal career. Right? So I would always say, and I stand by this today, we can't use that stuff in our determination of who George Floyd was in that moment, because we didn't know those things in that moment. We found out later. But the truth is the truth, and the truth always comes out, and whether Chauvin or anybody else knew in that moment, and whether we're going to use it to pass judgment in that moment or not, it's fine. But things do come to light. And not only has this man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, not only is he described as a member of the terrorist organization MS-13 by two different federal courts, but he also has now been named in a restraining order by his wife, the same wife that was holding a press conference for him yesterday. Now, listen, I believe in forgiveness. It's Holy Week, right? We have to believe in forgiveness. We have to turn the other cheek. I get it, and I'm with it. But I will say that when we look at a situation such as this, that they're saying the man was not allowed to be in the country legally. He was going to be deported anyway. The mistake was in having him deported too soon because he was still due one hearing, right? One court appearance. The outcome was going to be the same anyway. And to have that twisted by the media as somehow being accidentally deported to meaning like he was never supposed to be deported is wrong. And to come to the defense of this person who, again, are we going to have a repeat of the George Floyd scenario? Or now we're going to take someone that's clearly a criminal? And I'm not saying he deserved to die in any way, right? That opens up a whole new can of worms. Did he die of a fentanyl overdose? He had enough fentanyl in his system to kill, more than one person. I've seen all the reports. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is very simply, are we as a people going to come to the aid of this individual who was deported for being a gang member, a terrorist organization member? Well, Caroline Leavitt responded to all of these allegations today. Listen to this.
And just this morning, it was revealed through Maryland court documents that Abrego Garcia's wife petitioned for an order of protection against him for 2 instances of domestic violence in May of 2021. And here is the order right here. The court ordered that the respondent committed the following acts of abuse. Once in May of 2021, assault in any degree. And on May 4th of 2021, he punched and scratched his wife, ripped off her shirt, and grabbed and bruised her. This is from a court in Maryland. So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. To set all of that aside, the basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again.
Again, that is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. So the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, deported from Maryland to El Salvador. Everybody, not everybody, I guess, many in the media, coming at Trump, coming at President Bukele, coming at everybody out there creating a narrative that innocent people are simply being grabbed off the streets and deported. It's a lie. And it's a lie to make the administration look erratic. It's a lie to make the administration look haphazard and emotional when it's not. I'd say this is one of the most calculated administrations that we've seen. Well, maybe Obama. He was also very calculated, very cunning as well. So give it more time. More will come to light. And just a quick update on, I told you some heads would roll. More heads seem to be rolling regarding leaks. I don't know which leak they're talking about in particular, but we played some clips of one individual being walked out of Hegseth's shop, Secretary Hegseth, yesterday. And 2 more deputy chiefs of staff to that individual also being walked out in relation to the leak as well, whichever leak they're referring to. So I'll try and get the scoop on that as well. But like I said, give it some time. Heads will roll. And they seem to be a-rolling. Now, what else do we have? Oh, we're going to have some conversation on the SAVE Act with an update from Capitol Hill. That's coming up straight ahead. And all of these things that we do, we're able to do because we're connected, right? We're connected. We're able to have a conversation with one another because of this wonderful medium, this wonderful invention, this beautiful thing I love that we call radio. It's unlike TV, right? And I love TV. I go on TV pretty often. But I don't have this type of connection with you, all the listeners. This, late night radio in particular. I used to do morning radio, 10 to noon, New York City. And I can tell you that it's different at night. People are willing to listen to all 3 hours of the show. And because they're not as busy, right? They're unwinding and they're interested in hearing about what went on during the day. And they have the time to invest as much of it as you're able to share. And I say all of that because before we get into our update from Capitol Hill, I think it's important that we look at the things that we cherish, the people that we care about, and we make sure that not only we have radios, that they have radios, right? We got a great sponsor here, Sea Crane, and I like to tell you about what's going on because sometimes people struggle with getting good reception in their home. Sea Crane has a radio called the Sea Crane Wi-Fi 3 Internet Radio. And let me tell you, that's your solution. There's a reason it's so special, at least why I think so. You connect the CC Wi-Fi 3 to the Internet, and you're ready to tune into over 30,000 radio stations across the globe, including stations that carry this show, my show. No static, no fading, nada. You get focused audio, voice-focused clarity. It surpasses any smartphone that's on the market. Plus, there's no need to sign into any apps, so you don't have to worry about additional monthly fees, no eavesdropping microphones or pop-up ads, none of that. And with a full-size remote control, you can find exactly what you want to listen to while relaxing in your favorite easy chair. It's never been simpler. It even doubles as a Bluetooth speaker. So you can listen to your favorite music, your favorite podcasts, like Rich Valdez, America at Night, or our other podcast, This is America with Rich Valdez. Make sure you listen to that as well. Now, if you want to order one of these C. Crane radios, the CC Wi-Fi 3, just call C. Crane. I'm going to give you their phone number. It's 800-522-8863, 800-522-8863, or visit C. Crane online at ccrane.com/rich. That's CCRANE.com/RICH. And you can use Rich at checkout for 10% off any order over $75. So get one for yourself, get one for everyone that you love. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want to talk about a little bit about what's going on in Washington. Of course, that's always something that we've got to pay attention to. And a couple of weeks ago, President Trump made some statements about the World Trade Organization. Now, as you know, lately we've been talking about tariffs a lot. We talked a lot about China. And what's interesting is China wasn't really a major player in a whole lot until it got back into the World Trade Organization back when I was a teenager back in the 90s. And President Clinton kind of spearheaded that effort for them. And thanks, President Clinton, because look at where we are today. Listen to what President Trump said last week.
This should have been done before Obama, in all fairness. Not only Biden, Obama. This should have been done many years ago. This started with the World Trade Organization, which was owned by China. It was owned and paid for by China. They didn't even have to do things. They considered them a nation that was undeveloped. They said they were a developing nation. Well, we're a developing nation, too, if you think about it. Look at our inner cities. Look at what's happened. I think we're starting from ground zero there, right? So we're a developing nation, too. No, I know it's a lot of people would take heat for saying it, but I blame the people sitting at this desk more than I blame China. If China can get away with what they got away with taking hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars right out of our pocket, because our people here were stupid. They were stupid people. Maybe corrupt. I don't know. I don't know how you can be that stupid. How do you get to be president and you're stupid? But they certainly weren't courageous. And they allowed this to happen. And with Japan and with many other countries that took advantage of us. I mean, we had deficits with almost every country.
As you can see, President Trump not a fan and not a happy camper when it comes to the World Trade Organization and China's involvement. And one congressman from Wisconsin really kind of stood out here, and he said, you know what, I'm going to put together this bill and introduce it. And he did just that. Congressman Tiffany, a Republican from Wisconsin, put together this bill that would, in effect, withdraw congressional approval for the United States to be a member of the WTO. And here to explain all of that is Congressman Tom Tiffany. Welcome, sir.
Rich, it's a great opportunity to join you. First time on the show. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And let's talk about this, because you know what? I follow this stuff. It's kind of what I do, and I've been doing it since like 2005. And in the 20 years, I can't remember the last time I shared a story like this that said we're talking about withdrawing from the World Trade Organization. What inspired you to take this action? And I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but it hasn't gotten traction. So what's up with that?
So you are correct. It was back in 2005 that the last time there was a vote held in Congress of whether we should get out of the World Trade Organization. every 5 years it comes up for renewal. And Congress can just take a pass if it wants to. And that's what's been going on over the last 20 years. I believe with it coming up now that we should not take a pass, especially with the debate we're having in regards to tariffs, trade, all the rest. It's time to have a vote on WTO. And let's find out where our congressional representatives stand on this issue. Remember, when this was being argued back in the 1990s, should this be done, good stuff like that, they're like, China is a developing country, as the president said, and this may help them move more towards democracy if they're trading with countries like the United States. Has China advanced towards more democratic values? And the answer is very simple. It is no, they have not. President Xi is clearly a totalitarian. They steal intellectual property. They use forced labor. They run spy balloons over our country.
With impunity.
And by the way, in your city, they have police stations that they spy on their own citizens. So it is, it really is. And so it's time to hold China to account. And all this would do is it would require a vote annually of whether we should continue to have free trade with China. And I think this is a good piece of leverage that the Congress could hold over China and say, okay, if you're a good actor, then we're just going to continue on as is. If you're not, well, then there has to be consequences.
So now, withdrawing the United States, our participation, how does this affect the rest of the WTO? Does this put China in a better position where they say, oh, it's going to be a free-for-all? Or does it send a message to everybody else saying, hey, if they're not here, I don't want to be here either?
I'd answer your question this way, Rich. We have gotten entangled in these international organizations. It's been going on a long time, going back to the League of Nations and then its successor organization, the United Nations, World Health Organization, and others. And I believe, especially here in the 21st century, they have not served the interests of the United States of America. In fact, they've served to the detriment of America. And let me give you a couple examples. I was down to Panama when the invasion of America was being unleashed, starting back in 2021. There was the United Nations with the International Organization for Migration, of which we pay 25% of their budget, and they were setting up shop down there to industrialize bringing people into our country illegally. The WHO, we know the story, and we know the WHO story. They hid what was happening in the Wuhan lab. The Taiwanese officials back at the end of 2019 were warning them something funny is going on in China at this Wuhan lab. What did the WHO do? Nothing. And now you have the World Trade Organization, which has just served as a puppet for China, has not served the interests of the United States of America. I mean, think about it. Before there was a WTO, we traded with countries just fine.
You're right. Congressman, stand by. We're going to continue this conversation as well as add a couple of more things to the mix, because I want to find out your take on what's going on with the latest with these radical judges coming after the administration. So, folks, we're coming right back with Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It's a project called Doge UN. It's reminiscent of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, only it's looking into the United Nations. It's not officially connected to the US government, but its founder, former US diplomat Hugh Dugan, says he's looking for ways to cut waste at the UN.
Over time, we've seen the growth of what I call a deep state United Nations. Doge UN is an effort to excise the waste and rogue behavior of the United Nations bureaucracy.
The US currently contributes roughly a quarter of the UN's budget annually, totaling around $20 billion. China is the second biggest contributor.
So that's a quick report on different efforts to defund the UN. And some news coming out just, I think it was last night or earlier today, about the White House Budget Office proposing an elimination of funding for the United Nations peacekeeping missions and a couple other things they mentioned. So I'm interested in hearing more about this, because this is the topic that we just landed on in our conversation with Congressman Tom Tiffany. Congressman, welcome back. You mentioned this right before the break, that your proposal to extract the United States from the World Trade Organization is just part of your larger view that we should not be overly involved in a lot of these international organizations. Now, hearing that there may be some cuts to the Department of State as well as our funding for the UN, your thoughts?
Yeah, such a timely thing. As you mentioned, I talked about the World Health Organization and the United Nations. I personally saw the International Organization for Migration. They are an open borders outfit that is housed within the United Nations. I saw them in Panama down in the Darien Gap setting up encampments, and they industrialized sending people from around the world that came into South America, went through the Darien Gap, and then they helped facilitate getting them to the United States. The first place I hope they look is IOM, or the International Organization for Migration, and they should defund them immediately.
You know, Congressman, what you saw firsthand is, in my opinion, the reality of what happens in so many of these organizations. Ultimately, it's kind of a replay of USAID and a lot of these programs that we've seen internationally, where deep state types, former CIA types, those people that want to fund whatever pet project or whatever political project they want to fund, they go ahead and they do it. And new administrations come in and they kind of say, all right, sure, we'll stick with it and we'll go with it. And now you have Trump, and Trump comes in and threatens these things, and then they raise all sorts of hell to try and eliminate Trump, right? And try to put him in jail and put his friends in jail and put his lawyers in jail and put everybody in jail. And now that they've realized the people are truly on his side, they've kind of eased up with that because he pushes back so effectively. And now I think we're really in a position where we might actually be able to see some funding cuts. I'm thrilled for one.
Yes, what a great opportunity at this point. And but they're not stopping at this point. I mean, when you see what Judge Boasberg's doing, you see Senator Van Hollen going down to El Salvador.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they are apoplectic at this point that the gravy train is going to go away. And but boy, it is fortuitous for the American people that President Trump showed the wherewithal, the determination to see this through, that he would get a second term as president, because even I knew this president was going to be transformative in this term, but even I did not expect to have someone who has just transformative isn't the word, Rich.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, at first, Trump 1.0, people were saying he's a bull in a china shop. And back then I said, that's exactly what Washington needs. And now we're actually seeing it play out, because there's been a learning curve, I think, that was met, and bringing in, your own people, and voila, you start to see how the sausage is made. And it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to put an end to this. And Trump's doing an amazing job. I agree with you. Transformative, it doesn't even begin to describe it.
Yeah, and China believes he's a bull in a china shop, too.
Oh, yeah, no question, right? Meanwhile, I think they're really the bull in the china shop. Now, Congressman Tom Tiffany, you mentioned Judge Boasberg. And Judge Boasberg today, after his admonition and I would say big loss from the Supreme Court vacating his ruling, he decided to double down today. And he says, you know what, I am going to hold members of the Trump administration in criminal contempt for not turning the plane around. Your thoughts?
That's why we passed the No Rogue Rulings Act in the House of Representatives last week, and why I hope the Senate will advance it, because here you have a judge that believes that he is king to do these nationwide injunctions on a narrow issue. But, he's really, don't you think, Rich, that he is the person now, amongst others, that we had the FBI and we had other actors that were involved with Russia collusion. We all know that was a hoax now from Trump administration 1. But now there are other players that are just as determined to sideline President Trump. They do not want to see the gravy train end. They think that this system of government that we developed with the corruption in it and insider deal, the inside dealing going on in Washington, D.C. should continue. So Judge Boasberg is just the next crew that is coming in. I mean, he's the next James Comey. He's the next, you plug in the name of the people that want to sideline this president. That's all he's trying to do. But this is a political judge who is not ruling on the law. I mean, he's saying the Alien Enemies Act should not be enforced. This is a law that goes back to 1798. It was reinforced by a Supreme Court decision in 1948. What does he not understand about precedent?
Yeah, 100%. I think the judge is totally grandstanding here. I think he realized, hey, I have an opportunity to be in front of a camera, just like the judge in New York that I forget his name right now, but when he saw the camera, he actually smiled at the camera, the guy in the New York trial. I mean, the guy's an absolute clown. I feel like this Boasberg is much the same way. I think everybody realizes if Trump is in your court or, the Trump administration is in your court, this is your chance to make a mark on your career that you probably never had a chance to make before. And I think that's why they take that shot. Now, Congressman, one more thing. One of your colleagues, and I know that, there's collegiality amongst members on the other side, and I respect that. It's also Holy Week, so I don't want to, talk out of turn about Congressman Jamie Raskin. But he was on CNN today, and I'm going to play you a short clip of what he had to say, and then I want to get your reaction. Listen to this, number 4.
They should bring it to court. If they want to prosecute him, first comply with all the federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, saying bring him back, facilitate his return to the country. If you got charges against him for MS-13 or you got charges against him for Tren de Aragua, you got charges against him for maybe he was the person really behind the attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021. And he was responsible for attacking 140 police officers and all those people going to jail who Trump pardoned. Whatever he's responsible for, charge him with it here, according to our constitutional system in a court of law, according him due process. The same due process rights, by the way, that Donald Trump got as a criminal defendant. And Donald Trump could not be airlifted to another country and just deported from the United States because he's a criminal convict. And this guy was never convicted of anything, has no criminal record at all.
Unbelievable. Now, again, Congressman Jamie Raskin on CNN today. He's your colleague. I don't know if he's your friend, but he's definitely your colleague, not mine. What do you think about what he's saying here?
Since when do we have to afford illegal aliens, criminal, violent illegal aliens, an illegal alien who is a wife beater? Since when do we have to offer them due process? It is amazing that you have someone like Representative Raskin, who is supposedly the preeminent constitutional lawyer amongst the Democrat conference in the House of Representatives, and he does not understand that due process, you do not have due process rights as an illegal alien. You do not have the same rights as, for example, Donald Trump, who is a citizen of the United States of America. I don't understand what part they don't understand, but I'm telling you what, if he and people like Senator Van Hollen, if they want to continue defending this MS-13 gang member, go ahead and knock yourself out, because we are going to run ad after ad after ad in the next election telling the American people what you stand for. and you saw the results last November 5th, will deliver it again if this is who you're going to stand for, rather than someone like Rachel Morin.
Oh, let me tell you, really well put, Congressman. And I got to tell you, folks, we're on with Congressman Tom Tiffany from Wisconsin. And, Congressman, this is, to me, remarkable that they doubled down. The hills that they're choosing to die on are the stupidest hills ever. I understand Congressman Raskin had some cancer issue in the past. Maybe that's part of this. I don't know. But I think this is a very, very bad move for him. He keeps throwing in January 6th somehow as if that's going to help. I don't know if that's fodder for the base. I don't even think the base even relates to this stuff. This is a case that went to the Supreme Court and came back 9-0. Trump gets to use the Alien Enemies Act. That's his right, as POTUS. So if it already went to court, and they're still talking about it, right? That sounded like Wolf Blitzer to me, talking to Raskin, saying, let's go to all the courts and comply, including the U.S. Supreme Court. This happened today, right? So this isn't an old clip. I can't for the life of me figure it out. Politically, you're savvier than I am. Why are they taking this approach? Why this strategy?
It's to appeal to the base, to gin up anger and all the rest. And remember, back in 1948, the Supreme Court upheld the Alien Enemies Act from 1798, and they said it this way. This is non-justiciable. In other words, the judiciary does not have a say in this, that the president has authority if people are trying to invade or come into our country in a way that is against the interests of the United States of America. And I think an MS-13 gang member kind of fits that profile. The president has sole authority. Congress doesn't. The judicial branch doesn't. The executive branch does. The president does. And that's all the president of the United States is going to do. I don't get it. I don't get it. But if they want to continue to push this with the American people, we're going to highlight for the American people, just as you are, Rich, that this is what the modern Democrat Party stands for. They will stand up for an illegal alien, a gang member illegal alien, that's a wife beater. They'll stand up for him before they will Rachel Morin, a citizen of Maryland, who was killed by an illegal alien.
Yeah, it really is very unfortunate. And Congressman, that's all of our time. I want to thank you for being here. Let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with all the amazing work you're doing. How do they follow you?
Yeah, go to @RepTiffany, and we always have good stuff up. I got a crack communications department and a crack communications staff. Just go to @RepTiffany. You can check us out there, and it was just a great pleasure to be with you, Rich.
Oh, you bet. We'll do it again real soon. There's always something to talk about. Congressman Tom Tiffany, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
Have a great night.
You bet. God bless, and happy Easter. And, amigos, we continue the conversation. We're going to talk about Rachel Morin, her mom, Patty Morin, what she had to say recently with respect to all of this. Senator Van Hollen going to El Salvador. We got the audio on all of it. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Why are we not protecting the American citizens? It's just common sense. Why are we not protecting our children? And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this.
That is Patty Morin, the mother of Rachel Morin, the aforementioned deceased mom who was killed by an illegal alien. And she's talking, that's her reaction to Senator Van Hollen, her senator, who she says did nothing when her daughter was killed. But now he's doing everything. He's running like live videos on TikTok or whatever social media saying, hey, I'm here, I'm getting my plane. I'm on my way to El Salvador to rescue this bad guy, or alleged bad guy, to be on the safe side. And then he cuts another video when he arrives there, making the case that the Trump administration's just fake, phony, and fraud. Listen to this. Number 2.
The case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia does not have to do with MS-13. If you listen to President Trump and the Trump administration, you would think that the U.S. courts have found that Mr. Abrego Garcia is part of MS-13, but in fact, they have not found that. In fact, recently, a U.S. federal court judge said that the Trump administration did not have evidence to support the claim that he had ever been part of MS-13. In fact, Mr. Abrego Garcia is legally in the United States. In fact, an immigration judge found years ago that it would put his life in danger if he was returned to El Salvador. And so he was given protective status and a work permit. And by the way, that was done during the last Trump administration, the last time President Trump was in office, and they never appealed that decision. So I want to emphasize that President Trump and our Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the Vice President of the United States are lying when they say that Abrego Garcia has been charged with a crime or is part of MS-13. That is a lie.
Well, Senator, they're not alleging that he was charged with a crime. They're alleging that he was consorting with members of a gang and was wearing similar gang affiliation, and that he is a known gang person because he asked for asylum saying he'd be killed by this very gang. Or the other gang, I should say, right? The 18th Street Boys or whatever. So it makes sense. I could tell you, if you lock me up, no gang is going to kill me because I don't have any beef with the gangs, except the Democrats. We're going to talk more about this. A lot of information that's just coming out in the last half hour or so. So I'll give you that related to the Chicago Bulls hat he was wearing and some reports. There's even a police report that's been released going to the contrary of everything Senator Van Hollen is saying. So keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, more to come in the next hour if you're with us. If not, then take care, good night, and God bless you, America. But Pam Bondi and the DOJ releasing information about this guy. His rank and his street name, Chequeo and Chele, have been released. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Wednesday night. We're live, we're national, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you. Hopefully you can join our late-night national town hall conversation. Here's the number, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. And I was talking about something before, about the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, sharing some information, new information about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the alleged MS-13 gang member. As you guys know, MS-13 is now a foreign terrorist organization, and he was admittedly wrongly deported to El Salvador's notorious mega prison last month, and not because they sent him to the wrong prison or anything like that, but because he wasn't supposed to be deported yet. Right. It was eventually, I think, one more hearing he was supposed to have. They were supposed to suspend his asylum or his temporary protected status and then deport him. Instead, that was the administrative oversight that occurred, the result being a more expedited departure by way of deportation. Anyway, his street name and gang rank have been released by the Department of Justice documents that were released. U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi shared additional evidence today to support President Trump's claims that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a member of the violent international gang after cops found him fraternizing with confirmed MS-13 gangbangers at a Maryland Home Depot back in March of 2019. His street name is Chele, and his rank is Chequeo. Interesting, right? Following the March 28th incident in Hyattsville, which we have a police report for, it's in the New York Post if you want to take a look at it, the Hyattsville City Police Department detective that Abrego Garcia, he basically indicates in the report that he is an active member of MS-13 with the Western Cliques, according to the gang field interview sheet that was shared on X by the Department of Justice and is included in the report that I'm referencing right now. The confidential source also added that Abrego Garcia carried the rank of Chequeo and the moniker of Chele, according to the report. Officers also noted that the illegal immigrant's clothing, a Chicago Bulls baseball cap and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes and ears and mouth of the presidents on the different denominations of bills, is indicative of this particular gang and their culture. The meaning of the clothing is to represent ver, oír, y callar, or see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, according to the report. The Bulls hat that Mr. Garcia was wearing also had less to do with the sports team in Chicago and more to do with the internal goings-on of the MS-13 gang, according to the police in the report, saying, quote, wearing the Chicago Bulls hat represents that he is an active member in good standing with the MS-13. Abrego Garcia, who had been living in the Maryland area, was shipped off with 260 other reputed gang members to El Salvador's hellhole lockup Seacoat last month under the Alien Enemies Act. Let me see if there's anything else here that is relevant or new. Of course, the White House, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's basically it. Everything else is more of the same stuff that you've heard for. And then it references his wife looking for a protective order against him after he punched, scratched, and grabbed her, bruising her, according to the court documents. That was just 4 years ago in 2021. Now, I know some people who are more forgiving than I are saying, well, people change. That doesn't mean anything. It means that I'm glad you're not president and that you're not the one coming to my rescue if someone is scratching, punching, and bruising me, right? We don't need people that are that forgiving in positions like that. His wife told the New York Post today, that she asked for the protection from Abrego in 2021. She was acting out of caution after a disagreement with Kilmar, in case things escalated after she survived domestic abuse in a previous relationship. So there you have it. That's the story with this guy. I'm not here to say he's a bad guy. I'm just here to say I think what happened was inevitable. And that's it. You know, if this guy were an American citizen, I'd be singing a different song, for sure. I'd be saying, you know what? He should be afforded every bit of his due process. Unless he was an American citizen that was in bed with a foreign terror organization. Then again, you kind of kiss your rights away. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a defense, and I think he'd likely get one being an American citizen. It wouldn't go over so well, right? But in this case, it is what it is. I know, like I told you, I have three that I grew up with that committed felonies, went to jail for those crimes, 3-4 years each. And when they got out, ICE was there and deported them back to the countries they were born in. And none of those guys, all three of them, had come here before they were a year old. All three of them. They grew up in the United States. I had no idea they were born in another country until that happened. Likely, they probably only knew because their birth certificate wasn't from the United States. It's the only country. One of my friends, Pat, he's turned out to be fantastic, a great entrepreneur. He was deported to Chile after a big incident that he got into. Maybe I'll bring him on the show one day so he could tell the story. It's a really inspiring story, very interesting story. But he didn't even grow up speaking Spanish. So he ended up at, he got locked up at 18, came out, I guess, at 23, 24, ended up in Chile, didn't speak a word of Spanish, had to learn a new language, got married out there, had kids. His kids are fantastic national athletes. He's doing a great job. But my point is, this happens all the time. And the fact that we're here doubling down on a guy that, come on, this guy wasn't supposed to be here. He beats his wife. I'll agree. That part's irrelevant because we didn't know that yesterday. What we did know is he wasn't supposed to be here. And had he minded his business and not gotten involved with MS-13 people, he'd likely still be here minding his business. But he didn't. And that's it. Wrong place, wrong time. That's how it goes. Now you got to do the time. Anyway, we're going to continue. We've got more to come straight ahead. I've got a lot that I want to discuss with you. We have some conversation on this Abrego case, on a bunch of different things that are happening. There's a call to impeach radical judges that are trying to impose their will on certain cases. There is the judge trying to hold Trump in contempt, the judge who asked for this guy to be returned, this Mr. Abrego, and so much more. So keep it locked right here. That conversation coming up straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting to bring Abrego Garcia home until he returns to his family. I hope to meet with representatives of the government. I hope to have the chance to actually see Kilmar and see what his condition is. But we are going to keep fighting because this is a miscarriage of justice. The Supreme Court has ruled 9-0, that he was illegally taken out of the country and put in a prison in El Salvador. And this is about due process. This is about rule of law. What bullies do is they begin by picking on the most vulnerable. But if we get rid of the rule of law and due process in the United States, it's a short road from there to tyranny.
Critics would argue that Senator Van Hollen, who you just heard from, that this is a much to do about nothing because this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is already home. At least that's what some critics are saying. Now, in terms of everything else that he said, the fact that, I've arrived in El Salvador, mind you, this is not him taking money out of his pocket, flying over there on his own time. This is him flying as a U.S. congressperson, using the money that's afforded to him as a United States senator from Maryland to do these things. This is absolute estupidez, if I say so myself. So I want to get your thoughts on this because I think it's silly, but you let me know. Let's go to the phones, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Let us go to Christopher, Silver City, New Mexico, KNUW. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. Good afternoon. How's it going?
Going really well, brother. How about you?
Oh, it's going, man. Just here working. No, I just find it hilarious that Van Hollen went out there and defended this guy and said that there was no evidence that he was a gang member, right? But yet admitted that a judge ordered that he was legally here because a judge ordered that a rival gang wanted to basically off
right.
this guy. So, it's just crazy, man.
Yeah. It's an excellent point. He was given his temporary protected status for asylum because he was going to be killed by this rival gang if he was deported. And that was how he got to stand. Again, that in itself was wrong, right? This is these left-wing activist immigration judges, irrespective of whoever's president, this is how they, massage the system to get their way. And here we are having this national debate over this. And I don't want to, sentence this guy without ever having met him or anything. But just looking at the facts of the case, it's amazing to me that you have people like Senator Van Hollen that are willing to put their name and reputation on the line for something this week.
Yeah, well, he just falls in line with that side of the aisle, like if you look at some of the stuff he's already done, he's raised the tobacco tax, prohibited oil drilling in the Chesapeake Bay, mandated trigger locks for guns, increased funding for education and health care. So, that just shows what type of, politician he is. So,
yeah. I think you're right, Christopher. He's definitely way more to the left than the center for sure. And it shows, especially when you go to the prison to try and break out the bad guy and bring him back. It's just absolutely crazy. Thank you, brother, for your call. Shout out to New Mexico, by the way. KNUW in the building. Let's go to Brian, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Go right ahead, sir. KFAY.
Hey, good evening, y'all. How y'all doing this evening?
Wonderful, sir. Thank you.
Hey, I want to kind of piggyback off of what the other caller had said. I think we both got the same mind and everything. But I want to kind of go deeper. It's like, okay, you get these representatives or whatever, they'll have a, senator, congressman or whatever. They know the law, but it's like, they don't care. They just want to do their own thing. It's like, can they not be held in contempt? Like you said, using our tax money to go down there. And then one little thing, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
All right. President Trump and all the cabinet members, hey, if Americans support you, just want to let you know, don't get too far in the weeds with this because they're wanting to distract from the other accomplishments like no tips on taxes, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and all the other stuff to be done because that's the part of the Democrat Party. They want to distract you to get you focused on one side, and then you go 4 years later. It's like, what just happened? We wasn't able to get anything done because we.
Well, and you know something that President Trump is really good at, Brian, is playing their game better than they play it, right? So they like to throw this one big thing out there so that everybody's heartstrings can be tugged upon, and Trump throws out 4 or 5 of these a day, these smoke bombs, so that they don't know which direction they're going in. And, for all we know, this is one of them, right? He's like, yeah, all right, go ahead. Keep chasing Abrego Garcia while I'm over here, doing everything I've got to do to, fix the economy. And thank God you're not beating me up for tariffs anymore. So I think Trump's doing all right. But, yes, very good point. And thank you for that. Now, to answer your question, we can't force by law or any other way for people to disagree with us. I think that would be anti-American. Right, the beginning of our country was a bunch of patriots arguing with one another that didn't agree on everything from slavery to you name it, taxes and whatnot. It's the very essence of what America is to disagree. It's how we disagree and how we move forward in what we do agree on, I think, that defines us in many ways. So, yeah, this is what they do. I mean, that's the essence of politics, is to influence the balance of powers so that, I see things one way, you may see them another way. May the best man with the best rhetorical ability and ability to persuade win. And that is what we do, right? And thankfully, our guy, President Trump, is really good at rhetoric. He's really good at persuasion. And he's great at simplifying complex ideas down to sound bites. And thank God he is, right? Thank God he's good at it, because it's necessary and important to be able to fight back against the Democrats who have been good at it and good at messaging forever. Brian, thank you for your call in Fayetteville, Arkansas, KFAY. I appreciate it. And we got more calls to go, but up against a little bit of a break here. So I just wanted to remind you that I am extraordinarily grateful for everyone that listens to this show on the radio, listening live. If you listen in a market where they carry us on a tape delay, still grateful for you. I'm hopeful that you can call in during the live part of the show so that you could also join our late night national town hall conversation. But everybody that listens the next day, right? Because I've had people call and say, listen, Rich, I love your show. And I go to work and I listen to you, but then I got to work. And when I get out, the show's over. So actually what I do is on my way to work the next day or on my way home, I listen to the podcast from the night before, and that's how they catch up. And I love that. And thank you for doing that. And for everybody that listens to the podcast and leaves us a 5-star review and a positive comment, thank you. That stuff goes a long way. And for sharing the link at richvaldez.com with your friends and your family so they could listen to a particular interview or a particular topic that we discussed, it means a lot to me. So I'm always grateful for that. It's a real blessing to be with you guys every single night, 5 nights a week. Anyway, we're going to get back to your calls and so much more. It's open phones across America. I'm taking your calls from all over the country, and I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Actually, I'm very angry. I'm actually outraged, but I'm too sad at the moment to show anger at the same time. He did not call our family. He did not give condolences. There was no Democratic Party in any way, from Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mayorkas, anyone here in Maryland, none of the senators did anything to help search for the murderer of my daughter.
That is Patty Morin, the mother of Rachel Morin, who was murdered by a different illegal alien in Maryland, giving her reaction to Senator Van Hollen going to El Salvador to try to free this man, who is now a confirmed member of MS-13 by the police department that originally arrested him back in 2019. That was their assessment, not mine. Now, and I'll get back into that in a moment, but I want to continue with your phone calls. We do have calls from all over the country. Let's go to Jim, Naperville, Illinois, WLS. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. You know what? I'm just curious whether I wonder if there's any body cam footage of this altercation between this guy, this creep from down the Maryland, and that's on El Salvador, with his wife.
Yeah, well, unless one of those two was wearing a body cam, I can't imagine there would be. What the White House was referencing today, and what I think you're talking about, is a court document. The wife was, got into something with him, went to the police, filed in the court. She went to court and filed a court order, a restraining order against him, an order of protection, and it was granted to her. And she's since responded that, she did that out of abundance of caution because she had been beaten by a previous, boyfriend, husband, whatever. And that was it. So this was not the police responding to an incident of, whatever. This is actually her account saying that he did these things.
Right. I'm glad he cleared that up because, otherwise that was right at the cusp of when they were enacting. Maryland was evidently enacting where it was, required by law enforcement to have body cams, So I was curious,
gotcha.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I was just,
absolutely.
wondered,
And listen, that would have made it an open and shut thing, right? Rather than a court order, we'd be looking at a video of this woman saying, "Yep, he did this, he did this." That literally would have put a fork in them. I don't think they would have recovered from her in her own words, at that moment. It seems like they're not going to recover from it at this point, but it seems like they have all of the left on their side, and you know what? Good for them. The left's got to fight for something. I say this is great. Keep fighting for this. This is a guaranteed loser in my book. I don't see too many people that are going to say, yeah, no, you know what? This is wrong. We should really be defending this guy. Thanks for your call, brother. I appreciate it. Jim in Naperville, Illinois, WLS, great station. And we have more calls. I'm going to get to you momentarily. But something that Jim said reminded me of this audio clip that I've got here. And it fascinates me because it's Mara Gay. Mara Gay is from the New York Times. And let me see what number this might be. All right. And she says that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the accused MS-13 terrorist, this whole case is a constitutional crisis. And I've got to say, I can't agree with her. I don't believe that this is a constitutional crisis because, well, the Constitution is the limitations of the government and ensuring and enshrining, our Bill of Rights and, our liberty. And it's not exclusive to citizens, right? It's exclusive to the United States. However, when you're not a citizen, there are things that you just can't participate in, right? Like if you're not a citizen, you can't vote. Right, so when people make the case that, wow, people in Guam can't even vote. People in Puerto Rico can't even vote. Well, again, these are not states. Even though they're citizens in Puerto Rico, they can vote if they lived somewhere else, right, in a state. My parents are Puerto Rican. They lived in New York, and they were able to vote. If they lived in Puerto Rico, they could not vote because there's no voting in non-states. Makes sense, right? Want to vote, become a state. And in Puerto Rico's defense, they voted 3 times nationwide, should we become a state? And each time, more than 80% of the people that showed up to vote voted, yes, we should become a state. So that just tells you that the leftward movement in Puerto Rico is 20% or less. not as strong as people make the case for. The corruption is, I'm going to say, surmountable. It's not an impossible task, but that's a different argument for another day. So, Mara Gay, and I'm going to play the audio, but not right now, just because we've got a former prosecutor coming up in a little bit, and I want to get his reaction and get into it then. But I just find it interesting that so many people, Adam Schiff, he's another one. Adam Schiff is on Twitter saying that this is a constitutional crisis. This is like the new word. They use it all the time, right? Whenever they have something that they don't know, it's a big deal. Jamie Raskin is out there saying Donald Trump got more due process than this guy. Yeah, he's a citizen. It makes sense, right? He wasn't being charged as an affiliated member of a foreign terrorist organization, which vis-a-vis waives those rights of due process under the Alien Enemies Act that they went to court for and was clarified in a 9-0 decision that Trump can use it. I mean, this stuff is just so elementary to me, yet they want to double down on this. And I get it. They want to double down because they think this is it. This is the right thing. This is the fight they have to have, because the future of the Democrat Party is the illegal immigrant, right? It's the person that comes to this country that is going to need the most help, and they're hoping that they can provide that help by way of the government. And they're hoping that they can have a new generation of loyal voters when they've already seen what happens when people leave the Democrat plantation. You've got African Americans, men in particular, that left that plantation, right? And said, no, thank you, I'm voting for Trump. You got Hispanics, men and women, that said, no, thank you, I'm voting for Trump. You've got Asians that have picked up and left a long time ago, and they said, no, thank you, voting for Trump. Minorities voting for Trump. Everybody except white women showed gains for Trump. Fascinating, right? Really just fascinating. So it tells me that they're hard pressed to find something, and I think they feel this is the one. I think it's political suicide, honestly. It's a loser. LGBTQ is a loser, right? In particular, the transgender, the T in the LGBTQ. They tried to put a focus on this trans stuff. That blew up drastically in their face. Now you got Maine that continues to double down on that, saying, oh, no, because, again, for political expediency, to get some headlines. The people, 8 out of 10 I'm going to go with, maybe 9 out of 10. In some areas, probably all 10 out of 10. Think it's absolutely insane to allow kids to pick their gender. It's insane, inhumane, cruel, and should be illegal to allow a minor to have permanent sex change surgery. Yet they doubled down on it. They lost. Tampon Tim Walz, he lost. Are they going to do it again? I hope so. I really do. I really hope we can get AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Gavin Newsom, Stephen A. Smith. But something tells me Smith's too smart for that. But get him on the record saying, yes, be whatever you want. You feel like a boy, you're a boy. You feel like a girl, you're a girl. It's all good. That's what we just got to let them have their way. And then remind America, this is what these people stand for. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
We were in a really difficult place in Scotland then. We thought we were going to see rights for women rolled back. And today, the judges have said what we always believed to be the case, that women are protected by their biological sex, that sex is real, and that women can now feel safe that services and spaces designated for women are for women, and we are enormously grateful to the Supreme Court for this ruling.
That is part of a big story coming out of the United Kingdom today in England. The Supreme Court of the United Kingdom ruled today that only biological women are protected under Britain's Equality Act, contradicting prior statutory guidance by the Scottish government. Britain's highest court found in the landmark decision that individuals who've obtained a gender recognition certificate, known as a GRC, of legal transition from male to female, are not considered women under the 2010 Equality Act. The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex, said Patrick Stewart Hodge, Deputy President of the Supreme Court of the UK, who was reading the decision. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another, he added. The UK court ultimately ruled that the concept of sex is binary. A person is either a woman or a man, and that it would be incoherent and impracticable to allow persons with a GRC to be categorized as women under the Equality Act. However, it also specifies that this does not mean persons who identify as transgender are stripped of any legal protection as a protected class. Rather, it specifies that the protected characteristic of persons who identify as transgender is gender reassignment rather than sex. And then they go on to say it's not the role of the court to adjudicate on the arguments in the public domain on the meaning of gender or sex, nor is it to define the meaning of the word woman other than when it's used in the provisions of the Equality Act of 2010. How's that for a little scapegoating and doing the right thing at the same time? Interesting, right? So let's go to Tommy, Naples, Florida, WGUF. Tommy, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, my friend, I want to just thank you, first of all, for taking my call, and I'm spreading the truth. And, brother, I got to tell you, say it the way it is, and we love you for that. I just want to shout out for, Riley Gaines. What a brave, beautiful person she is.
Oh, yeah.
And let's call her a woman because she is a woman.
She's a woman.
Let's do that. And she's just doing the right thing for all these young girls that have to put up with the nonsense that anyone could ever think that there is nothing but a man or a woman.
Yeah, listen, I think you're 100% right. And Tommy, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. It's very kind of you. And you're right. Look, even the UK Supreme Court is weighing in on this. And, they're as far to the left as it comes in the UK. So I got to tell you, I think it's a good thing. And Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson should pay attention to their ruling. They had the courage to put in writing in an actual decision today what she couldn't do during her confirmation hearing. Tommy, Naples, Florida, WGUF. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And let us go to round out the hour with David in San Francisco streaming the show, calling in to disagree. Go right ahead.
Well, yeah, I was interested in your issue of the Doge, the UN. You remember it's been almost 1,000 years ago that the peasants were able to revolt against the King of England, and they got the Magna Carta signed, that the king has to look out for every sparrow, that the king has to look out for every one of his so-called subjects. And the king wasn't doing it. The king was hogging the taxes and then having a party with it. So the monarchists for 1,000 years have hated that. They've loved the idea of just being able to rip apart democracy and rip apart the social structure, the social...
you got to make your point, David.
Well, this trying to crush the United Nations with a fake of budget, to Doge it. First, they crush the economy, like Trump is doing, and then they Doge it. They say, oh, well, it's going to be too expensive to feed the poor. It's going to be too expensive to take care of the health care of the citizenry. So it's a way of getting rid of the social contract. It's a way of ripping up.
Well, the part of the problem here is there's people like me that I consider myself a citizen based on my blue passport and being born in the United States, and I've never agreed to this social contract, and I don't want to be a part of it. I don't, if I'm going to look out for my fellow man, if I see you on the side of the street bleeding and hungry, if I want to care for you and feed you, that's got to come out of the goodness of my heart, not because some bureaucrat is telling me they want a percentage of my paycheck in order for them to do it.
Yeah, and see, you don't even know what the social contract is then, do you?
No, I'm telling you I'm not interested in it. I reject the premise.
Is a traffic light of red, green, yellow part of the social contract?
I would prefer to wait until it's clear and then go, or bully my way through the intersection.
That
I don't want the light.
A pound is a pound and an ounce is an ounce. Is that a part of the social contract?
A pound is however much I take. If I want to take a pound, I'll take a pound. If I want to leave you an ounce, I'll leave you with an ounce.
So it makes sense that Project 2025 must love you because you're trying to rip apart the standards of America, the standards of the world.
You're getting it, David. Yes. Everybody that voted for Trump, all of these black people, all of these Spanish people, all of these white people, all of these Democrats that got behind Trump all want to rip apart this thing that you uphold and you think is dandy. This social contract, the Roberts Rules of Orders, doing things according to Hoyle, the way we've always done it, the monarchists, the king, all of this nonsense that you spew. We want that to die.
Yeah, it makes sense. Then how do you keep your job? You got a bunch
I keep talking to idiots like you, and I give you enough time to dig your own hole.
Yeah, so it makes sense. So America now knows whether you're a friend or a foe.
Yeah, I've of course. I would never obscure myself. I'm not a chameleon. Everybody knows where I stand. I don't mince words.
An S&M freak?
Maybe your mother is.
There you go. You must be.
How do you go from talking about the rules of order and the social contract to asking a radio host if they're an S&M freak? If you did that in the street, somebody would probably punch you in the face.
Have you ever heard of the Hellfire Club?
No, that's the stuff that you're into. I'm not into that type of thing. But, David, thank you for being such a weirdo on the radio for all the world to see. Your days on this show are very numbered. You're not that entertaining anymore, I got to tell you. But Godspeed to you, sir.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it's never a dull moment here with the S&M freaks on our program. And I want to go to James, Chicago, Illinois, WLS. What do you want to say tonight?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Valdez. Thank you for taking my question.
Yes.
I would like to know, sir, do you have any opinion and what is your knowledge of the U.S. Census Bureau's, one of their required surveys that is only sent out, as it turns out, to 3.5 million households. It's called the American Community Survey.
Not doing good with your 30-second warning, are you? Well, we'll try it again another time, Jane. You got to be able to get to it a little bit faster. Sorry, America. I was hoping to get to a point there. Anyway, we will continue this conversation in the next hour. And I am Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. Happy to be here. It's a real blessing to be with you guys. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, it's 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And there's a bunch of stuff going on in the news tonight. We're going to talk about a bunch of legal issues with a former assistant United States attorney. But before we get into that, I want to get into a little bit of what's going on here, because there's these leaks that we're not hearing a ton about, right? Even the mainstream media doesn't have a ton of stuff going on there. But I've got a couple of reports from ABC News that are now talking about a second and a third official in the Pentagon being suspended as a result of a leak investigation. And we have some background on it as well. I want to start with this report. Check this out.
Two U.S. sources telling ABC News a third top Pentagon official has been placed on administrative leave as part of an investigation into alleged leaks of defense secrets. The three officials are Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's Deputy Chief of Staff, Darren Selnick, Senior Advisor Dan Caldwell, and that third official, now Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff for Deputy Secretary of Defense, Stephen Feinberg.
So those are the three guys that have been ID'd as, being involved in this leak, and they've been put on leave during this leak investigation. There's a little bit of a background here. Listen to this.
What we do know is that on March 21st, the Chief of Staff of the Pentagon, he issued a directive that an investigation should be launched into unauthorized disclosures. Now, this followed Elon Musk's visit here to the Pentagon, which was leaked the night before. It caused us quite the stir. We also know that there was an investigation into information that a second aircraft carrier was being sent out to the Middle East, and information about Chinese war plans in Panama, military plans being now drawn up for the Panama Canal. So there were quite a large number of stories that came out around the same time frame, and apparently this triggered an investigation. Now the question is, how are these individuals all related? Do they even have anything to do with those stories that I just listed?
So that's what we know thus far. But again, a third top guy at the Pentagon has been put on leave after this investigation. The latest being this Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff to the Deputy Defense Secretary, Stephen Feinberg. And Carroll's suspension follows the removal of Dan Caldwell, a senior advisor to Secretary Hegseth, and Darren Selnick, the Pentagon's Chief Deputy Chief of Staff, from their jobs on Tuesday. So now what we're seeing is that Caldwell, Carroll, and Selnick have been placed on administrative leave during this investigation, which I guess is probably par for the course. Selnick had been under investigation in the same leak probe that implicated Caldwell, according to those reports. Both men were escorted out of the Pentagon by security, which I'm guessing is also protocol. The defense official on Wednesday did not say that whether Carroll's suspension was related to these same leaks or a different investigation. The suspensions come less than a month after Hegseth's Chief of Staff, Joe Casper, ordered the Director of Defense Intelligence, Counterintelligence, Law Enforcement, and Security to assist in a investigation into unauthorized disclosures of sensitive and classified information across the Department of Defense. Recent unauthorized disclosures of national security information involving sensitive communications with principals within the Office of the Secretary of Defense demand immediate and thorough investigation, Casper wrote in the March 21st memo that was just mentioned in that clip. Now, this directive noted that polygraph tests would be administered in accordance with the applicable laws and the policies of the department, and as part of their hunt for these leakers. It's unclear whether any of the suspended officials were subjected to polygraph tests as of now. There's also a report including a complete record of unauthorized disclosures within the Department of Defense and recommendations to improve such efforts. That's expected to be delivered to Hegseth at the end of this investigation. Here's a quote from Chief of Staff Casper, writing, "I expect to be informed immediately if this effort results in information identifying a party responsible for an unauthorized disclosure, and that such information would be referred to the appropriate criminal law enforcement entity for criminal prosecution," Casper wrote. So loose lips sink ships is what's going on at the Pentagon. And I got to say, I love it. All right? I love it. You can look at this one of two ways. You could say, oh, my gosh, it doesn't end. It doesn't. It's Washington. All right? People are going to be people. It's like, becoming a cop and going, oh, my gosh, the bad guys are still committing crimes. You would think they would have learned no, come on, they're people. People mess things up all the time. What is good is that we're taking action on it, right? And there's some reports that I've seen that these are not people that have been around forever and a day. And many of these people are people that came in with Hegseth. So goes to show you, he's not playing favorites here. He's doing what has to be done. He's saying, look, hey, listen, I get it. I get it. I understand that the rules are there and you've got to follow the rules. And when you play at that level, you can't be sloppy. So everybody tells me, get into politics, you should run for this. I would be a mess. And my attention to detail is just not there. And I'm that guy that'd be like, listen, this is classified, sensitive area. I'll be the first one whipping out my cell phone. Check this out. I'm in a classified area. Why? How do I know I do that? Because I did it once. I was invited to the inaugural ball for President George W. Bush. And I believe it was at the Omni Shoreham or one of those big hotels there. And there were these Secret Service checkpoints every couple of blocks. And again, this was 2005. And so 20 years ago. And I remember every couple of blocks, you had to show your ID, go through a metal detector or whatever, or like a checkpoint. The metal detector was like the last stop. And I remember getting there, and I was so impressed by this. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I thought it was really impressive that they had so many guards and such tight security in the street, right? None of this was inside the hotel. This was all outside the hotel for blocks. And I remember taking out a camera. I didn't have a cell phone camera at that time. I had a regular cell phone and like a flip phone, I think. And I pulled out my camera, one of those little silver digital cameras, and I started taking pictures. And like a dope, thinking like a tourist, I had no idea. And the Secret Service guy came to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I just think this is so cool. And he was like, yeah, you can't do that. Let me see the camera. And I was like, oh, and he was like, delete the pictures. I'm hitting delete. I'm all nervous. My hands are shaking. I was like, I'm sorry, man. I'm not a terrorist, He was like, you can't do that. And I was like, all right, I won't take any more. And I think I didn't even get them all. I think I got the first two, and I had taken 4. So I still have these blurry pictures of a magnometer. I don't have them anymore. I don't have the camera. But my point is, yeah, that's me. I do things like that. I'm the one that's like, oh, I want to take pictures here. So, yeah, I could see myself getting into friendly fire in a situation like that with saying, all right, we found you guilty of leaking information, and without even knowing that I was leaking information. So I could see it's challenging. And that's why they have Senate confirmation, and you have to pick these people very carefully because, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? That's the old saying. And like I always tell you, eventually heads always roll. Anyway, I want to talk about what's going on with this lawsuit from Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is suing the Trump administration, plus the judge, Judge Boasberg. We talked about him before. We're bringing him back up. He says that he is going to hold members of the Trump administration in contempt, criminal contempt, if they don't bring back this criminal, the illegal alien that was deported for being involved with MS-13, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You can't make this stuff up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
This morning, a federal judge found probable cause to hold the Trump administration in criminal contempt over deporting Venezuelan migrants despite a court order to stop the planes. Judge James Boasberg says the U.S. government is demonstrating a, quote, willful disregard in defying court orders to stop using the Alien Enemies Act to deport migrants. Boasberg has not determined a potential penalty, and he is giving the Department of Justice time to respond. The Trump administration has argued it did not violate any orders. This comes after Boasberg said the Trump administration is not complying with a court ruling to return a man wrongfully deported from Maryland to a prison in El Salvador. The judge gave the administration 2 weeks to hand over information on what it has or has not done to comply with the Supreme Court's unanimous decision to facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's release.
So that's the latest on the judge. You've got the judge who is literally, in my opinion, going off the deep end here. But I want to get the opinion of a former assistant United States attorney from Northern California, John O'Connor. He's also the author of The Mysteries of Watergate and Postgate, how the Washington Post betrayed, Deep Throat, covered up Watergate, and began today's partisan advocacy journalism. John O'Connor, welcome back, sir.
Great to be with you.
So, John O'Connor, there's a lot I want to talk to you about. I mean, you're a man of much experience in both as a lawyer and just as somebody who's seen the world through your eyes, having been through all of this stuff, and with Watergate and everything else. And this is interesting to me because there's people calling for the impeachment of activist judges like Judge Boasberg. There are new developments with the judge, like you saw today, now calling for the Trump administration to be held in criminal contempt. And this comes after the Supreme Court decision that both sides are hailing the 9-0 as a victory. I see it as the court saying, look, the United States government needs to facilitate the return of this guy if and when he becomes available by the Salvadorian government. But they also recognize, and I believe vacated, the ruling of Judge or the order issued by Judge Boasberg indicating that that they have to bring him back because that's the purview and prerogative of the executive branch. That's what I understood. Tell me where I got it wrong.
Well, there are two cases going on, and it's very easy to confuse them because they're both involved El Salvador. The woman judge in Maryland is the one who has the single plaintiff case, the guy who was subject to the deportation or the deportation order where the judge said that you can't send him back to El Salvador. Now, that's a single plaintiff case, and that's the one in Maryland. And now, the one that Boasberg has is a whole group of El Salvadorians sent back.
Everybody on the plane.
And MS-13 people. They're terrorists. And so the real question is somebody leaked to the plaintiff's lawyers that this would be happening. Now, that's a serious issue that nobody's really got into. Who's leaking, which I think is criminal, if you're leaking confidential information like this out to the plaintiff's bar and so forth. That's one thing. But then what happened is Judge Boasberg issues an order, and it's not clear exactly when the order was given and when they got on the planes and so forth. But the order was one, when it finally was signed, was one that they can't remove these people. Well, the Trump folks say, well, wait a second, we've already removed them. They're already on a plane, so therefore removal's already happening, and we don't have to bring them back. Because so there's a back and forth as to what the order really said, what time it was, and everything. But let me get to the essence of this.
Sure.
The essence of this is to what degree, in my view, what degree these decisions need to be made by the executive branch under Article 2 versus a judge under Article 3. This has been going on throughout our history in America. We're just not so conscious of it in modern days. But Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, even FDR got into this. Then when Harry Truman seized steel mills for national security purposes, that went to the Supreme Court. We haven't had a lot of this in recent days, and things seem to get solved during the Guantanamo Bay time period. But really, the issue here, when it really gets down to it, is how much these decisions should be left to the executive branch versus the judicial branch. Now, here's the conundrum that we have, and I don't think there's any solution to it. The judge says, look, I've just issued a 46-page decision showing how right I am and how the Trump administration didn't do the right things. But in here, it's in a judicial decision. It's a 46-pager. But he's sort of missing the point. The Trump administration says, yes, you're issuing a judicial decision. Can't you hear us? The judges aren't supposed to be deciding this. You can have your 46 pages. That's your branch's decision. We're the executive branch. Why can't you hear me? It's our decision that because we're in control of certain facets of national security and so forth and so on, and especially under the 1798 Alien and Sedition Act, we should be able to do this. So what I'm telling you is that there will be a bunch of people in the country that say that, Boasberg's absolutely right. The Trump administration are full of renegades. There are other people say that Boasberg should be impeached. I actually think my position is they're both wrong, in the sense that I'm not so sure Boasberg should be impeached. He, in good faith, is sticking up for the judicial branch. The Trump administration is sticking up for executive powers, and this is what makes the horse race. So I find it fascinating. It's something I've been studying for years, since Watergate, and my client got into this deep throat of Watergate fame. He was indicted himself. There are a lot of issues when you get into national security as to what extent you can do things that are not reviewable by the courts or compliant with the Bill of Rights and so forth. And there's much, much, much to be written and said about this, but you won't find it. Lawyers are not trained in this. Law schools don't go into this, which is almost a matter of political history and reviewing what Jefferson thought, how Henry Clay didn't like what President Jackson did, and who didn't like what Lincoln did. So it really isn't something that people study. So you have all these lawyers who are used to studying due process, but they don't study this. And so it really is a very intriguing area. I don't think, really, very frankly, I don't think either side is technically wrong. I'm rooting for the executive powers because I think we have to recognize that there is an area of executive powers that are unreviewable, and the court should say, okay, I'm backing off. I'm giving deference. And Roberts mentioned that in his decision. There are certain things where the court should give judicial deference to the decisions of the executive. So this is one of the most interesting questions we'll face. There's no bright line.
We're going to continue the conversation with John O'Connor. He is the attorney for Deep Throat from Watergate. He's also a former United States attorney and assistant United States attorney. And we're going to talk about this. Is this a constitutional crisis? And what did Gavin Newsom say? Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The constitutional crisis is here. In that meeting in the White House, Donald Trump essentially told the Supreme Court to pound sand, because far from what he says is what he doesn't say, and that is nowhere in that. Ask the president of El Salvador to return the man wrongly sent to a maximum security prison in his country. It just never happens. The president has taken a very determined step towards dictatorship.
That's Senator Adam Schiff from California, known here affectionately as Adam Schiff for Brains. And he says that we are a step closer to a constitutional crisis. Mara Gay from the New York Times also weighing in, saying that this is a constitutional crisis. I want to get back to our guest, former Assistant United States Attorney John O'Connor. He represented Deep Throat in the Watergate case and has written a number of books on the topic. John O'Connor, is Adam Schiff telling the truth? Is this a constitutional crisis?
Well, crisis is a loaded word because it seems to suggest that one side, i.e. Trump, is doing something that's terrible, and if he gets away with it, the Constitution is done for. I look at it as a very important constitutional argument and discussion because the Constitution was written with a gray area between the three branches, between each of the three branches. And exactly where one ends and where one begins, we don't know. Think about Vietnam. The question was, remember, war was never declared in Vietnam. War was not declared in Korea. And so that was the executive branch doing this. Now, what happens is then the legislature says, oh, we should decide this. And then they go ahead and they decide whether they're going to do a resolution backing the national security action is what it is. It's not a war. So, in that case, it's sort of papered over because both sides can act like they really had control of this, where there was really a very, very stark difference as to who had that decision. Was that the legislative branch that needs to declare war, or is it the president's decision? And so throughout history, this has gone on. We just have been spared these decisions, in some form or fashion lately. But I don't think it's a crisis. I think the Trump administration is taking a very muscular stance toward executive action. And I actually applaud the idea. I will say it's not always executed as perfectly as I would like. Like this one guy had this order, the one guy that had the deportation order that said that he couldn't be sent to El Salvador. Look, that's probably a mistake. They should have brought him back, I think, or tried to get him back somehow.
What about doing like a hearing by video?
Well, it's not. That you could say that's due process. And see, that's the kind of thing that we ought to be talking about. Does he have to be back here to have that hearing? And let's say the Trump administration says, look, if he shouldn't be in El Salvador, let's have a hearing, and if we're ordered to take him back to America, we'll do it. We'll try to do it. We'll try to do it. Okay, but I think here's what I would say. I think the Trump administration should have avoided that. It's one single guy who happens to have an odd case. I think they probably should have gotten the guy back here and then deported him again. Okay. Now that's but that's an exception. That's one guy that happened to have an order. How many of these millions of people in the country have actually gotten an order saying you can't send me back to El Salvador? Very few. So I think that whole group is the bigger picture, the one that Judge Boasberg has, where he's trying to get everybody back, and they don't have a specific order against them, or in their favor, I should say. And that is where what I think a very lively and important legal argument should be made. And I'm not sure that it's really for the courts to decide that. That's the interesting thing. The issue is who decides it. Is it the courts who decide it? So Judge Boasberg issues a 46-page decision saying why he's right. And my response to it is, you're not addressing the issue of whether you get to write a 46-page decision. Right. Right. Who says that 46 pages is anything other than a pulp and to start your kindling? So I don't think that people understand that there is nuance to this. Right. There's a history throughout our country. For instance, Andrew Jackson's an issue as to funding the National Bank. There was an issue as to Indian removal. With George Washington, there was an issue as to whether or not he could clean out the whiskey rebels. Abraham Lincoln did a lot with people who spoke out against the Civil War, and some of them were arrested by military courts. Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus. To what extent can he do that? Abraham, here's a good one. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves on the basis of executive order, that he had no power except for national security. In other words, Lincoln recognized he could not free the slaves except for his executive national security powers that were then brought into play because of the South's rebellion, that if the South hadn't rebelled, then he couldn't have freed the slaves. He did not free the slaves in the 4 non-belligerent southern states, Maryland, Delaware, Kentucky, Missouri, that had slaves. So 4 states of slaves were not freed. My point is simply this. There are things that the president can do under national security powers that he cannot do regularly when the Constitution otherwise applies. And people misunderstood this. They don't know. When President Nixon is quoted as saying, well, if the president does it, it's legal. He was talking about national security powers. He got mocked by the Washington Post. Oh, he's acting like the president can do something that's illegal. He can do things that are otherwise illegal unless it's a presidential power. If Hitler were to come to New York in 1939 before war was declared, and if President Roosevelt thought it was a good idea, he doesn't have to go to the legislature. He doesn't have to go to the judge. He can shoot Hitler. I'm saying that he can not only can have him deported, he could shoot him. That's a decision he makes under his national security powers. So my client, Mark Felt, went to trial. He's the only time this has been tried. He was tried for a criminal act of searches on terrorist groups without constitutional probable cause. And basically it talked about how presidents had always allowed this to happen in national security cases. And the issue was so controversial when he was tried for this that they passed the law known as FISA. When FISA, we all hear about FISA, and we hear about these judges in the FISA court. Those are not regular Article III courts. They're special courts. And so that the FISA law recognizes that there are some things that the government can do that are not subject to actual judicial review. You don't need to go through a FISA court to do what they do there. You only go through a FISA court if you think you want to do it so that the court gives you a Mother May I good housekeeping seal. But you don't have to go
Or if you want to spy on Trump.
Or if you want to spy on Trump. But actually, and that's what they do, they immunize themselves by going through the FISA process. But my point is that the government can have national security powers. It can be abused, by the way, very much can be abused. And the CIA is a past master at this. They abuse them all the time. But nonetheless, they're there.
Right.
And so it doesn't do any good for a court to say, here's the 46 pages of legal precedent as to why you're off, and I'm holding you in contempt. No, sorry. You're
John
a branch.
O'Connor.
You don't have any better on this. Yeah.
I want to get a couple of minute response from you, maybe a minute or so, on Adam Schiff, governor of California, who's now suing the Trump administration over tariffs. Listen to this.
Today, I announced a lawsuit on behalf of the state of California suing the Trump administration. California is the largest manufacturing state in our union, one of the largest trading partners around the globe. No state will be impacted more than the state of California as it relates to the unilateral authority that's being asserted by the Trump administration to impose the largest tax increase in modern American history.
Excuse me, I called him Adam Schiff. He's Gavin Newsom. Birds of a feather.
Sure.
What do you think of this?
Well, yeah. What I think is that it's good publicity, but he has no power. I mean, obviously, the California may be hurt by tariffs. This has always been the situation with tariffs, that people get differentially hurt and helped throughout the country. Maybe people in Michigan might get helped or whatever. But so as far as a lawsuit is concerned, it's got zero chance of going forward. I give him credit as a politician to try to stir up anger, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, the president has power over tariffs and has been granted that, by the way. There's no doubt he has it under the legislative authority and so forth, that he can issue tariffs for various reasons. And so it's silly. Now, I hope that over the next 90 days, we figure out which things we need to really stay strong on tariffs and which ones don't make sense. But that's left up to Trump's discretion, and these things sort of are going to play out. But one of the things that you got to credit Trump for, I mean, this whole China thing is a separate discussion.
Yes.
But look, when you see that Canada has a 300% tariff on dairy or whatever they do, you say, well, wait a second, that shouldn't be there. And so we're going to find
choice
some
but
of
to take
this
action.
That we take action, and it's working. So as long as Washington is making sound decisions as to which things to tariff and which not. The second thing that no one talks about is national security. Getting back to where we talked before, if a war should break out, we want to be able to manufacture our own tanks and so forth. And if we
tanks,
get rid of
medicine, like we saw during COVID, there were so many things that we needed to manufacture. John O'Connor, I hate to cut you off, but I have to hit a break right here. Let everybody know how they can get a copy of your amazing book and follow everything that you're up to.
Well, what I would say is to go on my website, postgatebook.com, postgatebook.com. I've got about 120 articles on there. I've got all sorts of things about my podcast, a few books I've written, but they deal with these issues that you and I are talking about. So I hope that I do this just to get discussions going.
Well, I love it. We're going to have more of a discussion with you. I really enjoy our discussions. Hopefully we can have you back on in another couple of weeks to get an update on these same topics. John O'Connor, former United States Assistant U.S. Attorney, as well as Deep Throat's lawyer and the author of a number of books on Watergate. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good talking to you.
Likewise. God bless you. And amigos, your calls are coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. We continue with you all, we the people. I want to go to Ziggy, Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Go right ahead, sir.
How you doing there, brother? I tell you what, I love listening to your show. I think it's great. Question is, what in the heck is going wrong in our government? What are the Democrats thinking? What do they want to bring? A war to our country?
Yeah, now you're talking about what's happening with overseas, or what topic are you on?
Yeah, overseas right now. With this illegal being legally transported back to his country where he don't belong.
Oh, yeah, let me tell you. I agree with you, Ziggy. I think this is so unnecessary, but necessary, right? Something I try to do. I don't always get it right. But something I try to do is make sure I always say, what if it were the other way around? What if President Obama had done this? How would I react? What would I be saying? And I would have to say, I'd probably, when Obama was deporting everybody, and he still deported more people than any other president in recent history, I had no complaints. So, one of the few things he got right. What I'll say, though, is in this case, I think the Trump people admit that they made an error deporting him too soon, right? He had one more hearing to go. They deported him. They shouldn't have deported him yet. Because they admitted that fault, the media and the left are glomming onto it. And that's it. And that's really all it is. There's really no way out of this one but to have that hearing. I think the answer is to have a televised hearing, one of those, like a Zoom hearing, like many people do for traffic court, or like when you've had COVID and you had to do court for any reason. Everything was video appearances. I think they do that from that maximum security place called CCOT in El Salvador, and you call it a day. I think that's the only way. Otherwise, you're right. These people are always looking for a war. I think, they're bigger warmongers than I am. And that's pretty hard to believe. Ziggy in Chicago, Illinois, thanks for your kind words. I appreciate it. Let me continue here. Walter, St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, go right ahead.
Yes, saludos, Rich.
Saludos. Yes, sir.
Yes. I just came on the news at 11 o'clock on the radio. There's an island-wide blackout tonight in Puerto Rico. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I did. I saw that earlier. Sadly, Walter, there are bordering third world conditions when it comes to infrastructure in Puerto Rico. And this has been an ongoing problem. They've had corruption in the electric department. They did a bid. They got a new electric company to come out there and maintain the infrastructure. It's not good. The Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, was talking about this in the last cabinet meeting with President Trump, telling him that, the Biden administration had something like $24 billion available to improve the infrastructure in Puerto Rico, and they didn't. For whatever reason, neglect, you name it, who cares? I guess there wasn't much of a political advantage, so the Biden team didn't do it. But it goes to show you how important it is to have good politics. And I was talking about good politics the other night. Good politics work. And I urge the folks in Puerto Rico to work just a little harder to get more people on board, because the last time they had one of those plebiscite votes, 80% of the island, the last three times, in the last 20 years, I think they've had 3 elections, nationwide or statewide elections. Should Puerto Rico maintain its political status as a Commonwealth territory, or should it opt for statehood? And all 3 times, the majority, 80% and higher, like one time it was 80%, another time it was like 90-something%, another time I think it was 80-something%. Every time it was more than 80%. They all voted, yes, we should opt for statehood. So clearly, the majority of the citizens that vote in these plebiscites agree that they should become a state. Yet there's a vocal minority of leftists that are trying to separate from the United States and become an independent nation. This is something that A, isn't going to happen, and B, would be disastrous for Puerto Rico. So I would love to see Puerto Rico become a state. I think that would see things improve with their infrastructure. There'd be a little more accountability. But in this limbo situation that they've been in forever, I think we can only expect to see more of these frequent blackouts. Walter, thank you for your call, my brother.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Speed round. Let's go to Frank, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Frank, go right ahead quickly.
Buck Sexton and Clay Kravitz today during the daytime said that someone important, Letitia James maybe, who was persecuting Trump, has been found probably guilty of mortgage fraud. How come you haven't mentioned that?
So many Dems, so little time. I was just talking about that. Thank you for the reminder. You're right. It totally escaped me. I tweeted about it earlier today, but you're right. She actually gave a very unhinged response to those allegations at the National Action Network, Al Sharpton's group, where she was screaming, "Donald Trump, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you." So thank you for the reminder, Frank. We'll talk about that the next time we get together at whatever updates are available. Tony in Montreal, thank you very much. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.